That's Kevin Spacey taught me that.
To be
When you're
sweaty
hot
ready.
and sweaty, you're ripe and ready. Thanks, Kevin Spacey.
Is that a quote from Fist?
From him in a TV show in House of Cards.
That's weird.
Yeah, when they're hot and sweaty, they're ripe and ready. And
You know what
it
it
stuck
reminds
with
me
me because of how weird it is. I'm like, what?
That actually reminds me of have you ever seen Workaholics?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a character in Workaholics that plays a pervert that like preys on underage children.
And in real life, do you know what? Do you know what he is in real life?
Yeah, and it's played by Chris D'Elia, which was a stretch for him as an actor because in real life
he really had to
he's a pervert
reach far.
Preys on children.
Yeah, it was really tough for him to. I heard he stayed in character after the show too.
Right,
he was that dedicated. He didn't just stay in character on set; he stayed in character forever.
Yeah, that's actually what started it. He auditioned. He was going to audition for Workaholics as a pervert, and he was like, "I got to get into the mind.
Gotta get into the mindset,
Yeah, I've got to prey on some children." All right, that might be a cool cold open, possibly.
We all saw how well it worked out for Heath Ledger, so
yeah. Oh God.
And that comedian still is doing a podcast and shows.
Dude, that's the craziest part. Is that
you can get married, have a kid, and everyone's like, he's good now.
Anybody that ever bitches about cancel culture, it's like, look at Chris D'Elia. He literally has a cancellation every 6 months, still chugging along.
Yep.
It's like, nah, I'm not going to do that one. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From Right to Red. I'm Craig.
And Paul.
And Paul is sounding silky smooth today. Microphone update.
I had to just do something weird that popped into mind because I want to hear what the mic sounds like being back on.
Right. No, you don't have to lie. We're getting big. All right. We're kind of a big deal.
Because we're huge now.
Yeah, we're huge. So we were able to make some, we got that George Soros money pumping in. So now we can do the upgrades. We got the mic upgrade. We got our first Patreon subscriber.
Woo!
Thank you. Yeah, fuck it. I'm just gonna say it. Graham. I'm not gonna give any more.
We'll leave it if he wants us to. But yeah, Teddy Graham,
Love, and we should have been doing this every episode, but we suck at this. So
we suck at the give me money part.
Yeah, make sure to go to, if you like what you hear and you want us to continue delivering, show your support by going to patreon.com/FromRightToRed and subscribe. Right now, there is only one tier. It's the $3 a month subscription tier. And we made it as low as Patreon told us to do it, just so that we can get, people see if they're interested and support us. There's no benefits right now, but we'll figure them out as we go. Maybe some bonus content, stuff like that. But in the meantime, if you like what you hear right now and you want us to keep going, go to patreon.com/FromRightToRed and subscribe.
Yeah, and in case you were wondering, all that it's going to go to for now, like in the foreseeable future, is making this better, new devices to do the podcast with. Like, that's really my goal at this point, is if I can make the podcast better and have better quality devices to do it, I would be so happy, because that just means we can make it better for the people paying.
Right. We definitely see some small, humble equipment upgrades in our future, hopefully.
Yeah, I would love that a device to rely on.
Right. So this week we had the passing of someone near and dear to my heart, Henry Kissinger. And so I wanted to take some time. We're going to go through and talk about some of the things that Henry Kissinger contributed to society. But before we get to that, I just wanted to say, if you haven't already, reach out to an elected representative if you can, email, call, whatever. I know it sucks and it probably doesn't do anything, but show your support for Palestine. Again, a little update on the situation. The IDF had 2 main advances through Khan Yunis in the south of Gaza, and they are now completely encircling the downtown center of Khan Yunis. They're starting what looks to be another advance even further south, which is basically pushing directly up to the border with Egypt. We'll see how that turns out, but if it plays out as it has in the past, it's looking like they're going to encircle an even more dense civilian population. It's not looking good, folks. So,
and yet somehow we decided to up the amount of annual money we give to Israel.
And I just read
it's like an insane, like $800 some billion. Like
I don't know if it's that
like
high,
an amount, or maybe not that high. Or
I think it's
80
like
something,
been so far. It's been like 5 times their yearly amount, and they're already the number one. Yeah,
but whatever,
it's just crazy.
It's insane that like we are spending that much money there with how much Americans are pretty in need of support right now, and we're like, yeah, let's send our money into that. Like, what on earth are we doing? Help Americans. If you're not going to help the Palestinians, at least help Americans with the money. Like, you're not even doing that.
Yeah.
Like, at least stop funding it and helping it. If you're not going to support Palestine, they at least need to stop supporting Israel.
Yes, I would love for them to be using that money to arm Palestine against an illegal occupation. Right? But that's a pipe dream, obviously. So free college would be cool too.
Yeah, at that point, what are they going to arm all the Native Americans?
Right.
Like, here's some free money. Yeah, no, that'll never happen. But like, at the very least, stop giving my taxes to Israel. Like,
and I literally just read an article too before we came on that Biden is now apparently somehow trying to work out ways to accelerate the amount of arms that can be sold to Israel, like trying to speed it up, which is crazy. And people are a lot of people have asked my opinion on where Biden stands on this, and I think it's really clear like what's happening, because
it's been clear for a long time how he feels.
Yeah, but there's people that are like easily tricked by really simple things. So a lot of times you'll see an article in the Washington Post or the New York Times, and it'll say stuff like members of the Biden administration are secretly or are quietly talking about how Israel is bad or whatever, or Israel has gone too far or whatever. They'll put out like these, behind closed doors, they're doing that. You have to understand that those are engineered leaks. What is happening here is the Biden administration is saying we are losing a ton of support in our Democratic base from, specifically like people that are left of center. We are losing them fast and we need to get it back, but we can't let up. Like, Biden is a Zionist. This is a program that he agrees with. This is something that he wants to continue to do, bombing Palestine. So in order to kind of do both at the same time, have his cake and eat it too, he wants to like send out these leaks that are, quietly, we don't support what's going on. I'm sure there are people in the administration that legit feel that way. But if you think the stuff that ends up in the Washington Post isn't like completely manufactured, come on.
Nothing ends up there that isn't exactly what they wanted to end up there.
Yeah, it's just a game. But yes, so there's a Palestine update. Free Palestine. Please reach out if you haven't.
Yeah, and
Next,
even if you can't support anything with money or whatever, honestly, even if you just can do things on social media or
yeah,
help have conversations with people just to get them to understand, like
yeah,
anything you can do is not nothing. Like sometimes it feels like it's not enough, but like try. Like
right.
anything helps.
I've often heard the phrase "posting is not praxis," uh, to mean like the things that you do on Twitter and Reddit are not actually politically effective towards any goal, right? I at this point
Yeah, I disagree.
I started the podcast by saying like call or mail or text whatever, email your elected representatives.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think posting on Twitter at this point is more effective than doing any of that.
Yeah,
So
get out your typewriter and type up a letter and send it in the mail because they're
right.
gonna totally read it. I wish that kind of stuff I wish we with technology and like we've just decided a better way to communicate with representatives, like through social media, where
Yeah.
they actually paid attention. Like
Dude, there's so
especially
many
direct
things.
representatives or like governors of your state, like
Yeah.
they're not going to read letters and take calls from the average citizen, but we could at least get our message across on something.
Yep.
But now they just want to give you chainmail.
And honestly, the way I've talked to you about this before, but the way our electoral system is set up, it can never work that way. Even
Yeah,
if I had
it's a
like a
joke.
direct line, everybody had a direct line to call them. Like it can't work that way. It's a purposefully flawed system. All right, so today we want to get into the crimes of Henry Kissinger. I will say the only thing that I'm like upset
So your new
about.
Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, that's it, right? You like
The
that?
crimes.
The Crimes of Henry Kissinger.
Isn't that a
Maybe
Harry
that'll be the
Potter
title.
movie? Isn't that a
It
Harry
sounds
Potter
like it.
movie?
I
The
think it
crimes
is.
of something.
It is now. He shit. What was I saying?
The crimes.
The Crimes of Henry Kissinger. Fuck. Let me take that just all again. My bad. I'll chop this up.
No,
All right,
don't.
So
Don't cut any of it.
Don't cut it. Me stand off into space to
Yes.
regain my train of thought. So we want to talk. We want to talk today about the crimes of Henry Kissinger. First, let me start by asking you, Paul. Tell me what you know, or like what you think or feel. Give me a vibes-based analysis of Henry Kissinger, if you would.
So, if you asked me before he died, I'd have like much less because just even trying to avoid it, saving it for this podcast, I've seen bits and pieces. I assume he's pretty bad dude at this point.
Yeah.
But at most, I just thought like, oh, he's another one of those shady guys because I knew like, oh, he helped get us out of Vietnam, according to what I learned in school.
Yeah.
But I knew like he was cool with Nixon and stuff. So I figured like, well, we all know Nixon was up to shady stuff. We all know every president has been up to shady stuff. So like, he probably has some buried skeletons, but I just figured, oh, he was like Secretary of State. So just probably your average shitty like politician, but I didn't think he was worse or better than others because he didn't
Gotcha.
stand out to me. I've seen him a lot more than a lot of other names,
Yeah.
but I never focused on him much other than like, oh, he was Secretary of State, cool with Nixon, which is probably not good for him.
Right.
And he was like in politics forever in some way, shape, or form. I know that. Like he was always doing different stuff. But isn't like Secretary of State the highest he got or something?
Yeah. So
that's
I
like
guess
as much as I really know. So it's a
that's
topic
great.
you actually get to teach me a ton about.
Well, I'll try my best.
I imagine he did shady stuff with Nixon because Nixon was just. I mean, you could look at his face and you knew.
I actually was. I was going to say when you were mentioning that, like, his connection specifically to Nixon, it reminded me of his semi involvement in Watergate and
Was he
Like,
involved in Watergate?
yeah, and like I didn't
Hell
include
yeah.
any of that. I didn't include any of that because I guess we could do a whole other one on just that. But like
Jesus.
it's crazy because his political career should have ended there. But I'm
Wait,
getting way ahead of
so is
myself.
he just like bounced around doing shady shit like that? That would
Dude,
be hilarious.
dude, it's
Like
wild.
I must have missed a good one.
Let me back up because I'm getting ahead of myself. For those of you that don't know, Henry Kissinger was the he was a U.S. National Security Advisor under Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. And
Was
at
he
one
American? Can I ask? Was he like born in America?
point, I didn't
Or
do a
was he
deep dive on his early life.
or was
But
he one of
I know
those that like came over from somewhere like,
he
oh, he's
did.
a war criminal, but he's ours now?
No. He actually he was actually on not the bad. I shouldn't say the bad side. The side that was receiving the bad in World War II. Like, I believe he
Dude,
came
great
up.
start.
Yeah, I believe he came up as a Jewish man, a Jewish young lad in Nazi Germany.
Oh, so that like from
He was a
birth,
German
he
Jew.
wants you to sympathize with him.
Yeah, but also like, and none of this is going to come up, so this is all off the top of my head. But I know, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but don't let that fool you, because at one point he is on record as has he said it was only through a mistake at birth that he's not an anti-Semite, because
What?
because if he said, because if every single person for 3,000 years hates you, there's probably a reason. so he was a virulent anti-Semite.
So this is what kind of logic is
Oh, dude,
that?
there's none in his life.
Is he like someone like a fake like a fake philosopher where he thinks he's profound, but it's the silliest thoughts?
I think the best way I can sum up his whole life and that quote and everything that he's ever been involved with is like, you know, that episode of Always Sunny where Max like, I'm playing both sides. That's just what he constantly did.
But you're not supposed to tell us that you're playing both sides.
Yeah.
Like he was Mac.
He was the master of that, and that's like something that pops up in his whole life, and it's funny that I'd never even thought about how that mirrors with him, you know, coming up as a German Jew, and then becoming an anti-Semite.
That's how he was in politics forever. Is he was never like, I'm this or I'm that. He was like, wherever the wind takes me, I got you guys.
Right from the get-go. Sorry, just to finish his intro. No, you're good.
I'm gonna throw you off track a lot. This is how wild this motherfucker was.
You're fine, dude. So he was National Security Advisor under Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. At one point, he was also Secretary of State whilst at one point.
At the same time?
He was both.
You can do that?
Well, yeah, apparently, you know.
What? Is he at one Heinrich, not Henry? He's probably Heinrich.
He's something.
How can you have both of those at the same time? I didn't know you could.
I don't know, man. They make when you're German in American government, they just let you do things.
And Jewish. They're like, oh, we can't touch this guy. Let him do whatever.
No, you want both? Okay. All right. You can have
sure.
both.
I mean, normally we don't do that, but you know, all right. Okay. Yeah. Who am I to tell you no?
No, I really just tried to focus on his crimes, you know, and I haven't thought about him in so long, which is a good thing. So it's, you know, it was kind of tough to narrow it down, but he, there's just so much going on with him. Every year of his life, you can write so much. But before he was even in any type of governmental position, he was already meddling in our politics abroad.
What was he doing before?
So he was a professor. Let me start by talking about his influence in Vietnam, right? And I was I didn't know if I was going to go chronologically through the things that he's done or if I was going to put them in some type of order, kind of like building up crescendo wise. I kind of ended up with a mix of both. So we're going to start with the earliest thing that he was kind of involved with before he was ever in any kind of governmental role whatsoever. He was a professor I believe it was at Harvard. I'd have to double check. Not important. But what was important was that he, during the Vietnam War, was reaching out to both administrations that were coming up for election, the Nixon administration and his opponent, the Democratic opponent's administration. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. He was reaching out to both of them and saying, like, hey, I can help you out with Vietnam if you give me the NSA position in your administration.
Jesus.
So, like, simultaneously
Literally
doing the same
playing both
thing.
sides.
Yeah. And then he was working with Nixon, trying to deal with the possibility of peace talks and what that dynamic looked like, because he had a connection to Vietnam through a friend. Not super important again, but it's like before he's even in office, he's already meddling around with peace processes in Vietnam and trying to leverage that into a job at the government. So long story
he did
short,
all that while not in politics yet. Just as a
yes,
professor, he
'cause
literally
he had a
like
connection. Yeah.
kept the war. He kept a war going as a professor.
Well, a lot of that is in contention. I believe that it was like that was his goal, was to like keep things, but again, not super important because
What?
all the things that he does later just like get so much worse. So after after Nixon wins, he comes in. They give him exactly what he wanted. She wanted the NSA spot, so he gets the NSA spot, and he immediately starts like working. Not exactly immediately, but immediately in these terms begins working on like shutting down peace processes. So Henry Cabot.
Imagine the type of human that shuts down peace.
Dude, that's like all he wanted to do. And he was so crazy in Vietnam, like he was constantly trying to like shut down any kind of peace process that was taking place. And at one point during the Vietnam War, North Korea struck a plane of U.S. Navy men, and they killed like 32 of them or something, and it wasn't really related to the broader conflict in Vietnam, but his response was that he wanted to nuke North Korea. And he said that it would be advantageous. That would be like an advantageous thing to do for the Vietnam War. He wanted to like tie that together somehow.
What?
Like also Nixon was like a drunk.
That's what for a second I thought you like misspoke and said the wrong country. But like no he thought nuking a different country.
Yeah. The guy
was the answer.
And that's why I cringe whenever people talk about what like a diplomacy expert he was. No, dude, the guy was kind of dumb about a lot of stuff, but he just always knew how to play every side involved.
Is he the guy that has the quote about like that essentially sparked that thing I discussed with you before about like the guys that do lectures on nothing's really illegal because it's all in perspective and like every man decides it for themselves. There's no such thing as morality that's universal. Isn't that dude? Was it him?
It could be. I try to do as little psychic damage to myself as possible and not read too much direct quotes from Satan.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like that weird psychic stuff. I like reading about that stuff. But I feel like that sounds like something he would say now. And I remember them saying it stems from some guy's works that was...
Oh, definitely. It would definitely be something that he would say. Yeah. He didn't care about any of that. Have you ever heard of Operation Duck Hook?
It sounds familiar.
So Operation Duck Hook, it never went through, but it was a proposed plan in 1969 for the nuclear bombardment of North Vietnam to end the war. They were like seriously considering this Operation Duck Hook to nuke Vietnam. And the biggest proponent for it in the White House was Henry Kissinger. He was like,
this dude just wanted to nuke people.
He will just want, that's what I mean. Like he was just like bloodthirsty, dude. He just wanted to nuke. If it's not North Korea, fine, Vietnam.
But like we saw what using nuclear bombs does. Like,
yeah.
And the fact that after he was still like, yeah, dude, let's keep doing that. Like,
let's keep doing that.
Totally. Wait, they're in peace talks? fuck that. Like,
yeah, not anymore.
what kind of man? Like,
Yeah, all throughout the Vietnam War, and it's funny. Yeah, it's just so funny because people think about him sometimes as like a man that helped stop Vietnam, and it's like, okay, like that's fine,
Yeah.
but if you look at what he actually did, like what stopped Vietnam was the material conditions of the war in Vietnam. Like that's what ended up changing. He the entire time was working to constantly make those conditions worse for the people of Vietnam. So like he all throughout he'd send multiple memos now that are they came out in like 2014, multiple memos urging Nixon, to not to de-escalate. He was constantly pushing to stop peace, and
Jeez.
and then talking about nuking North Vietnam and North Korea, and like he was completely unhinged. And the one of the policies that he implemented in Vietnam or helped craft in Vietnam ended up creating a huge cluster in Cambodia, because in 1970 there was a invasion by the United States into Cambodia. What was happening at the time there was a lot of instability. I mean, it's not super important to get all of it. There was a lot of instability, and the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese communists were using Cambodia, pushing through to Cambodia. So it was kind of like a follow plan, is what they said it. But that started in 1970. The bombings of Cambodia started much earlier.
Oh yeah.
And
see, I remember that, but I didn't know
he was
Kissinger had anything to do with
instrumental in like pushing that forward. Like let's get the bombing going. And he oversaw that entire thing. He oversaw the genocidal carpet bombing that they were doing. It was in 1969 that started and went all the way to 1973. And just so you guys know, like,
so in turn, that means the next domino effect of those same things happening in Asia probably are caused by him too.
Yeah, so this is why it's tough to talk about Kissinger in like a linear way, because all of the things that he does end up leading to like more and more disaster. So he leads this carpet bombing in Cambodia, and it was 540,000 tons of bombs that were dropped over a 4-year period, killing 150,000 innocent civilians. And it has left that country today as they have so much unexploded ordnance still in Cambodia. They have 40,000 amputees out of a population of 16 million people, which makes them the highest per capita for amputees in the entire world. So like, not only did you kill all of those people, we're still generations away now, and there's still 40,000 people alive today that are amputees because of the policies of him. And the bombing and the incursion by the communists and the back and forth, the instability that we caused there in Cambodia, that starting in 1969, what happens in 1970, not only did we do the incursion into Cambodia in 1970, we actually did it. Now these documents have come out. We did it at the behest of the Khmer Rouge. Like the Khmer Rouge were led by Pol Pot, were a horrible genocidal regime in Cambodia, and they basically said, "Hey, can you invade for us?" And we did that. Yep. So like, we led to all of the issues that came with Pol Pot and Cambodia. So when people ask me about like death tolls as far as Kissinger, I'm including not just the bombing, but all the crimes that were committed by Pol Pot in Cambodia, because he allowed those conditions to take place there. It was an absolute disaster.
Oh, to not know the man behind all this, like to not realize, like, because I've known about those conflicts and I've known about what we did, but I guess I didn't know who was like national security advisor.
He's got his hands in so much, dude. I feel like I'm going fast, but I'll be all right.
This dude, I'm just like disgusted by it already. Like,
Yeah.
But I think it's because I know about what happened in those places. Like
Yeah, and I
Cambodia
didn't
is
know.
sad. Like
Yeah.
it's horrible because also most Americans have no idea about that at all.
Yeah.
Like,
I think more people have in the past. But
yeah.
certainly when we were growing up,
Oh,
nobody.
they don't teach anything about
No
that.
idea. Yeah.
I mean, we had like by the time I was in school, they had like a paragraph about Vietnam and a paragraph about Korea because they didn't want to tell us too much about how well those wars went for them.
Right. Right.
But
And I
like,
didn't.
I don't know. They never taught us anything about Cambodia or Laos or Indonesia. Like
No.
that, they don't touch on any of that. They don't want
Is
us
it?
to know.
Is it? This is one situation where I have a bad case of like book problem. I don't know a better way to say it. Where it's like you read a word but you never speak it. So do you say Lao or do you say Laos?
I say Lao, but
I feel like that's right.
I don't believe I've ever heard officially how they pronounce it there. Which I mean,
Yeah,
knowing America, it might not even be the same word. Who
exactly.
knows?
That's true too.
Like,
Yeah,
but
it's probably
I don't
some
know.
crazy word.
I don't know if I know what's right, but I feel like I just heard Lao more often, so I went with that.
I did that for so long with Cutter because I'd read it so many times, but had
And
never like.
then,
There's nobody in my world that would ever want to talk to me about Cutter,
yeah,
and so
and
I'd
then,
always call it Qatar. You
yeah,
know,
and I thought it was that as well too for a long time.
right,
But that's probably how they even pronounce it in school when we were learning about countries.
right. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order now. All right. So far we have Henry Kissinger. He's fucking meddling in Vietnam before he even gets into any position. Weasels his way by literally playing both sides, so that no matter what happened in the election, he would have ended up as the national security advisor to
Fucking
whichever
bitch.
administration, and he didn't care whether it was Democrat or
Little
Republican.
bitch.
Total bitch. And there's more to that story too, like of him going around talking about how he could never even vote for Nixon because the Republicans were so bad, and yet ends up working. Yeah, he just plays both sides. That's all he does. So he goes through all that. He continues pushing for more war in Vietnam. As we all know, that was a complete disaster for our country, for Vietnam, everybody. So
Pushes for more war in Vietnam after telling president-elects he'll help end the war in Vietnam.
Yeah, and then he's actively working against peace processes. He's doing like
sick, bro.
He's doing parallel peace talks where like the official
Legit
peace
lying
talks are
to
happening.
presidents.
Yeah, the official peace talks are happening, and then he'll like meet with somebody else from Vietnam in an apartment in Paris and be like, "Nah, whatever that dude's saying is bullshit." Like literally, that's the kind of shady shit this dude is doing.
This fucking guy.
So then he starts this bombing campaign or oversees this bombing campaign in Cambodia, which leads to disastrous results, and invades at the behest of the Khmer Rouge, and just gets totally nutty with it. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. 1971. In 1971, there was a Bengali leader who, at the time, Bangladesh was East Pakistan, and this Bengali leader was elected on like a platform of independence of East Pakistan, and breaking away. The military dictator of Bangladesh at the time, a guy named Yahya Khan, he was a crucial ally at that point for the United States because he was kind of a bulwark against what was at the time a more socialist, left-leaning India. So we had to keep Yahya Khan in our good favor because we hated communists, right? So,
which isn't America heavily involved in why those countries started splitting up too?
Oh yeah,
didn't they help? Yeah, that could be like a whole episode us going into the split.
Absolutely, yeah. This
like
is all just
why Pakistan exists.
a comedy of errors.
Yeah, like why that's even a country.
Right.
Yeah.
So Yahya Khan is trying to stop this liberation movement that's taking place. It later leads to what ends up happening. This leader's elected before anything really even goes down. Yahya Khan decides I'm going to get first strike type of stuff going, and begins a full scale genocide of Bengali Hindus. And all of that was greenlit, overseen, and contributed to by Henry Kissinger, including doing, at the time, an illegal transfer of fighter jets to Yahya Khan in order to keep that genocide going. So that was horrible. And I'll tell you the reason why it was illegal later on. It's funny. We're going to kind of do a little flashback. But that led to the Bangladeshi Liberation War, that genocide, which, leads to Bangladesh now. But that's just another example of him just like meddling as much as possible to increase tensions, increase genocide. Whenever there's something bad, he's like, let me see if I can get a little taste of that. Like that's what he wanted. And before we go fully back in time, I want to stop at one that I think you'll find pretty interesting. Do you remember what happened in Chile in 1970?
Don't.
This is one that
you're going to tell me like he was behind Chicago Boys and stuff.
Oh,
I'm going to be like, actually.
Yeah. Actually, Kissinger was the chief architect, the designer, the overseer, the person in charge entirely of what happened to Salvador Allende in Chile. So there was actually, yeah.
Damn it.
And
that by itself is enough. Come on.
I know. It's like one of the most devastating losses in socialist history, I think, was losing Allende, because it was just like squashing hope before you could even see it begin to blossom. And it's a really, really sad story. If you guys don't know, look up the 9/11 that happened 50 years ago. And it literally happened on September 11th in Chile. I believe it was 1973. Because 70 he was elected, right? Anyway.
I believe on 9/11, on our Instagram, I posted all about that on that day.
Okay, good.
Like good. We got the real 9/11.
The real 9/11. Yes. The
never forget. Never forget.
So Kissinger was in charge of all that, and I want to go through some of it. So actually,
how have I been so close, but like I've known.
I'm going to get into
that. He was behind it. Is he like a behind the scenes guy? Like,
oh, very much so. But not only
he was
that,
always meddling in the shadows.
Not only that, but even look at his death, man. Like his death came and went 24 hours. How many weeks and weeks of articles did we get about the Queen dying? And don't get me wrong, fuck the Queen.
My God.
Like, happy she's dead.
Hey, you're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to say that.
Yeah,
like who gives a fuck? Like I was born from these other inbreeders, so I'm special.
And she totally sucks, but like she doesn't wield any real power. You know what I mean? Like
no, not really anymore.
40 years. Like what are they? I mean, but this is a guy who was behind the scenes, and we literally had like one 24-hour news cycle about Henry Kissinger, and that was it. We had a Rolling Stone article that was dope, and everything else.
I heard about the Rolling Stone article.
The Rolling Stone was good. Yeah,
but that's probably why we didn't get a lot, is they realize, people are going to not have the response we want. Because I'm sure older generations probably still are like, yeah, America, he was great.
Right. Yeah, it's weird how very little coverage a lot of his shenanigans get. But going back to Chile, there was actually, I don't remember if this was in a 2014 release or if it was an earlier document release that came out, but there was actually this one, I think this cable we got because of the USSR archives. That might be it. So in like 1991.
Yeah. Shout out.
There was a secret cable in which Henry Kissinger was reaching out to the station chief in Santiago, Chile, to reaffirm that they were continuing their policy for Allende to be overthrown by a coup. Like those are literally the words that were spoken.
Jesus.
Immediately after his election, Kissinger oversaw financial support to any group that would oppose him. I don't know if you are like super into like that period of right after his election to when he was overthrown, but if you are, you'll know that there's like there's a period where there was a lot of worker strikes,
Yeah.
and they could never figure out like really who was funding these. Well, that was Kissinger. Kissinger was funding anti-government worker
my God.
strikes. Like yeah, like oh yeah, the leftist workers in Chile really were striking. You know, like that was really homegrown. You know,
Well, yeah, because I mean, that's
Yeah.
opposite of what would happen.
exactly. And then there was a general that was kind of like a what Kissinger believed would be a holdout for the coup, would be getting rid of this general in the Chilean army that was pretty loyal, and so they just had him assassinated, just straight up, just killed him.
Jeez.
And then
Come on, man.
Then we
This
have the
is
coup.
just gonna be a sad episode, bro.
I know, dude.
It's like a horrific list of like every crime in the last 50 years from the U.S. Like, actually, he had something to do with that one too.
Yeah, this is
What?
pretty bad. So yeah, he did all that nonsense, and then, of course, when Pinochet takes control of the country, he throws his full backing and support behind Pinochet, including economic support. He got the people flown over, the infamous Chicago boys that came over to quote unquote transform the Chilean economy. And let me give you the results here. Actually,
I guess transform would be the right word. I mean, they were trying to transform it into pure capitalism,
certainly,
but the most exploitive kind. Like,
yeah. By the end of here's the results. The results are in, the ones that I care about. At the end of Pinochet's rule, over 40,000 people had been either killed or tortured by his regime, including leftists, minority groups, just completely butchered. So there you go. There's
a lot of blood on his hands.
Yeah. Are you familiar at all with East Timor?
I don't believe so.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. A blind spot.
East Timor.
So you are familiar with Suharto, though? Suharto
Yes.
of Indonesia.
Yes.
So it turns out he was really bad. If you only know him as bad from Blowback, he's ultra bad.
Was this in the book and I missed it?
I don't think so.
Okay. So he's that in the shadows that even what is it, Vincent Bevan's book about Indonesia, like.
Well, Vincent's cuts off after, because he used the Bevan's book cuts off after like 1966-ish or 7-ish.
Oh, so you're talking later on Kissinger's.
That was when Suharto
he's responsible
first came
for
to
coming
power.
back.
Yeah.
This mother.
After Suharto was in power, another thing happened. There was a election in East Timor. Leftist groups there declared independence from Portugal, and that was kind of met as a challenge from Suharto. So he went personally to meet with Gerald Ford and Henry Kissinger, and he wanted to get
met with that
Suharto.
With him?
Oh yeah. You know who was at the protest when he was meeting there?
Michael
Parenti in person. Yeah.
Of course, Parenti was there. Hell yeah.
At least I think that was the time. So Suharto meets
our presidents were openly meeting with people like that. Like,
oh, definitely.
What the fuck? How is this shit not like,
dude? It's only in hindsight. The crazy part is like it's only in hindsight when you look back. Like, there's a picture of Ronald Reagan meeting with the Taliban. You know,
yeah, that's one of my favorite pictures.
Isn't that the one? Ronald Reagan? I think that was one. Like, it's only when it happens real time, everybody's like, whatever, no big deal. Those are the good guys, you know, because they get the media to convince you it's good. There was the newspaper article about Osama bin Laden where he's like, this person is leading his freedom fighters to victory or whatever. Yeah, I don't give a shit. They just pretend they didn't know. Oh, we didn't know he was so bad. Well, here's the proof.
We didn't know,
So,
even though we like helped him get in power.
Right.
Like,
so
we didn't even know.
Suharto comes and meets personally with Gerald Ford and Henry Kissinger. And the only reason he was there, the primary reason he came, was he wanted their permission to annex East Timor. And he got it. They gave him the green light. Go ahead. You're good to go. In the invasion that happened afterwards, Indonesia invades East Timor. They occupy. Well, first of all, they kill 200,000 people. And then they occupy them for 24 years, and it's a brutal occupation with like extrajudicial executions, torture, rape, forced starvation, just widespread massacres all the time. 90% of the weapons that were used in that invasion came from the United States through Henry Kissinger. So like all of that was from that monster, that complete psychopath.
So like, I mean, he wasn't involved in the original, but like that conflict was brutal as well. Like, just awful.
Right.
Oh my God. And it's like a group of people that it's like, I feel like, oh, you should be supporting, like, they're kind of liberating themselves and they want to be free. And they're like, oh, fuck that. Like, you should be supporting people like that. Like, hell yeah. What do you guys need? Like, you're going to be awesome. Nope.
Definitely not. Yeah. Like, whenever
literally the opposite of like, we're spreading freedom. As soon as someone gets free, we're like, fuck freedom. You're ours. Like, what is this shit?
Seriously, whenever there was any type of like just cause, don't worry. Kissinger was on the wrong side of that cause. Yeah. Any kind of liberation movement, any kind of leftist movement, anything good, he was all against.
Yeah, if he was there for Pearl Harbor, he would have been egging him on. Like, hell yeah, I hope you bomb us, because that's essentially what we were doing anyway, because we wanted a way in. So he would have been like, yeah, I bet you won't. I bet you won't. Come on, go ahead, attack us. This motherfucker.
All right, so I want to do one more recap before I do the last part here. So Henry Kissinger, he meddling in Vietnam, he's meddling in Chile simultaneously. He's assassinating all the coolest socialist leaders we know. He helps the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, which leads to mass amount of deaths. He helps Chile, kill and torture 40,000 people. He gives the green light and gives 90% of all the weapons used for Suharto in Indonesia to commit genocide against the East Timorese. It's completely nonsense and completely insane. And when I try and explain who Kissinger is to people by using these examples, it always gets so into the weeds about me saying like he's just cynical, like this is just like what he does and he doesn't care about it, and them saying, well, no, he thought he was, the person that I'm arguing with would be like, no, he just thought he was making the best decision at the time based on the situation.
But like, never is genocide the right decision. No matter what, there's something less bad that is the other choice.
Right. But let me, I completely agree with you, number one. But I want to give them the best fighting chance in this argument as possible. So let me say that, like, there is a situation in which his choices were just the best choice at the time. Let's pretend that is real, that there is an option for that to happen. There's not. There's never a reason why you would commit genocide.
But just for fun. Devil's advocate.
Fun,
just
granted,
for funsies.
We'll give it to you, okay?
He's got a heart of gold.
Right. There's one incident that I think is particularly damning to that perspective, and it's what he did in Argentina. Not because of death counts or anything like that. Argentina had what was known as like the Dirty War in 1976.
behind that too.
Yeah, but
No.
the part that like proves that he knew he wasn't making the right choice, there was an explicit green light that was given to Argentina to in the dirty war where they they did horrible shit. They were cracking down on what were supposedly terrorists, but they were just leftists, and
Sounds scary.
yeah,
Bunch of
committed
leftists.
committed a lot of atrocities there. But when he met with them and they asked for the green light to go ahead with this kind of nastiness that they were doing, he made the really cynical choice to say, yeah, it's 1976. You can go ahead, but you have to be done by the end of the year. And the reason why was in January of 1977, a new law was going to come into place that would not allow them to give U.S. aid to governments that were violating human rights in an excessive way. So
secret is we violate that all the time anyway.
right. But he was
we are currently violating many laws similar to that right now.
I think like if he had a crystal ball and could see into the future and see like how little we give a fuck about supporting countries that commit human rights violations, he wouldn't have said it. Like he wouldn't have cared. But like in his mind, this is how conniving he is in his mind. He's like, they literally came to him. The Argentinians came to him and they thought that the meeting was going to be about human rights because they were violating human rights to an incredible degree. They thought that was going to be the discussion. And in this
they
discussion,
come like going to the principal's office like, shit, we're in trouble.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to be in trouble, right? And so they show up for this meeting with Kissinger, and he wants to talk about like everything under the sun except for human rights violations. Like he never brings it up. And so finally at the end of the meeting, the Argentinians are like, look, we have these quote unquote terrorists in our country and we're committing human rights violations. And we want to make sure that we still have your support, even though this is taking place. And Kissinger replies literally by saying, yes, get rid of all of those terrorists, however you need to do it. Just make sure that you're done by the end of the year, because he was afraid of a law coming into place.
Because like, we're going to make it illegal next year. Right. It's not now.
Yeah. Like that's the mind of somebody that's just like looking out for themselves, being entirely cynical, not worrying about who his decisions are affecting other than like, how can I make this so that I have a way out? Like how can I make sure
guy that like would start bragging about his crimes after the statute of limitations is up. Like just a total piece of shit.
Total piece of shit, dude.
Oh my god.
So there's a ton more that I could go into on all of these. I could get into way more detail. But I think that just like really sums it up, man.
So you have all these
a piece of shit.
Yeah. You have all these numbers. You ever tally all those up there? That's what I was hoping for at the end.
Sorry, my bad. So
I was hoping that you keep saying all those numbers. Let's add them up for fun. Let's see what they are.
Well, when you add up everything that he was directly involved with, you end up getting between 3 and 4 million deaths.
Jesus.
But but
what about
don't
indirectly
like that.
Too?
Yeah.
Like I said, the domino effect, like we see in South America, we hit one place and the next year we're continuing like, oh, leftists are popping up. Shit.
Right.
So I think the domino effect could have kept going just because of what he had like he passed the baton.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many like factors down the line for sure.
Jesus.
But I think one that is usually never counted, and I think explicitly should be counted, is all of the numbers for Pol Pot. Because like,
I mean, it sounds like almost. I mean, it's between directly and indirectly.
It's so close.
Like it's right there. Of like if he didn't do what he did, how would that have played out?
That's at 2 million people there. So he's easy at 5, maybe 6 million people. It's a lot. It's a lot of blood.
An insane amount of people. Yeah. But like, it's just crazy how many times throughout this, it's reminded me of the shit that we're starting to see through now, of like things like that, of that law of supplying those weapons. Those laws are in place at an international level at this point, of like, if someone is obviously committing war crimes, avoiding humanitarian rights, it becomes illegal for you to supply them with weapons according to international law.
Right.
Yet here we are watching this. I mean, we have our largest stockpiles of weapons there that they can just kind of go grab when they're running low, of like, oh,
Yeah.
the Americans have this pile of shit here, like
They're
dip in
always
there.
willing to
Like,
sell.
yeah, it's like, so the fact that like we were doing it then and it still echoes now, of like, even if we're not directly doing it, we're indirectly supporting that. And it's just got to stop. Like, how long
nuts.
can those types of things just keep happening? Like, this, even, I mean, even the Asia stuff alone, or the South America stuff alone, like, is damning enough.
Yep.
But like all of these different things, one man, like, removing that man, obviously, like, there's still other evil, but like, he definitely was, sounds like, very instrumental in a lot of the stuff getting pushed through, or like finding ways to get it done even when they weren't supposed to.
Yep. I think there's 2 points on that for me. Number one is I'm incredibly sad that a person like that was able to sustain himself so long in our politics and
die of pretty much old age, like comfortably
old
at
age,
home and shit,
happy,
like,
comfortable in a giant
while all
mansion
these
filled
great
with
leaders
money.
were offed by him at young ages.
That's number one. And number two, for people that think like, oh, actually, I got 3 points. Number two, for people that think that was it. Like, he was out after Ford and that was it. You got to understand, this dude was behind the scenes for so much. I mean, he was a chair on the 9/11 Commission in 2001 or 2002. So
which I'm sure he had
still
super good insight on that.
I know. So he was still like very relevant. And if you go back and just search every president we've ever had since Nixon, search that president's name plus Kissinger, you'll see some article about them meeting up for policy planning, policy strategy, and stuff like that.
Because those guys are like CIA guys, where like they never really quit, even when they quit. Like, they're around, they're doing stuff.
Yeah. I can't remember what my fucking third point was.
My bad.
No.
I'm just so like, the fact that I've just known about so much that he was involved with, but not realizing he was that responsible for so much of it, is just wild to me, of like, that's how good he was at being kind of behind the scenes about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. You were saying
how it echoes today.
Echoes today. Shit, I don't know. Fuck it.
And how we're still doing that same shit, but I don't know. I just don't get how we keep picking these types of people for all these positions. Like, every one of these dudes ends up being so, like, pretty much psychotic. Like,
yeah.
I mean, look at freaking McCarthy, like, all these huge names in America from those times. It's like, actually, if you look into it, this person was a psychopath.
Right.
Like, and they were just glorified by the US because that's what we did. Like, we just had to have that, because we didn't have that big culture from hundreds of years. So like, anyone they could prop into a big hero like that for America to give us that identity, they kind of just did. They were like, prop him up, he was awesome.
Right.
Great American hero.
It's so wild. I remembered the other point I was going to make. The fact that, like you said, it echoes through to today, and also like about the people and the people that are in certain positions. Like, what does that tell you about our systems in the United States when somebody with absolutely no experience in that field can literally put themselves in a position where they were so powerful that they're responsible for the deaths of 5 to 6 million innocent civilians. Like there was no stopgap. And so when people like try and
Like
talk
just
to me
getting
about,
in by being like, "Hey, bud, I
Right.
can do this for you."
I want
Like,
to play both sides. Yeah.
yeah, like what? Like, and that's how he gets in and gets to power. Like
And it wasn't like it was a meritocracy. Like the only reason he
into
had,
unelected positions.
yeah,
Like,
the only reason he had the power and capacity to make that leveraged move against both administrations in the lead up to the Nixon election was because he knew a guy. Like that was it. There's no meritocracy involved. There's no democracy involved. Like an acquaintance of his was friends with somebody high up in the North Vietnamese government apparatus, and so he was like, "Oh, I can do a little back channel peace talk here, and I can try and figure out a way to like wedge myself into one of these administrations." And that's it. And then once he's in, like that's it. He's done. Like so, when people yell at me and say like, when I say things like America is not a democracy right now, and probably hasn't ever been for, if ever. And they're like, "Well, it's a democracy." I'm sorry, no, dude. Like this dude just like weasel his way straight in to killing 6 million people. That's not a democracy. That doesn't exist
No.
in something that's an actual full democracy. There's got to be
And-
stopgaps or some type of measure, backstops to stop somebody, a psychopath, from doing that.
especially when it comes to like foreign relations, should we have a fucking unelected psychopath making decisions on who gets bombed in the world?
Right.
Like, what world is this? Like, what is happening? What is going on?
What's going on? What is going on?
Like, that shows such a big flaw in that whole democracy thing.
Right.
Though,
What if there's
for
another
sure.
psycho
Like,
right now that just like reads Kissinger's biography?
What if?
I know, what
Yeah.
if, right? Like, what if this has happened every single time since then? Like, literally, somebody just reads like his biography, and he's like, "Oh, okay, all right, I guess I got to go spend some time in fucking China, make friends with the dude in the government, and come back here and then just fucking wedge my way into NSA." Like, what? That doesn't make
Has
sense.
this been your master plan all along? You're gonna
describing myself a little bit, wasn't it?
So, and then he's gonna start a leftist podcast to really make sure people don't know what he's up to
I'm
in the
deep cover.
I mean, you did out yourself last episode about your involvement with the IDF, so
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't get into those positions just out of nowhere. That's not an entry level job.
That's true.
Dude's been around.
I'm one of God's chosen dick suckers.
Yeah, just think of, I mean, they say practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Just think of the practice involved.
Very true.
We need to have a huge shakeup on that, on how our democracy works, because we need to not have people making like foreign relations decisions who were not elected by the people they're representing.
Yeah, it doesn't make
that's
any sense.
insane to me to have that much power
When you read
and not be elected.
When you read about him too, sometimes, and now now we've done the brief overview episode, so now you can go deep.
Do you, on that note, do you have any good books that are maybe like a biography of him that you've read that are not like an American biography of him?
I'll try.
You know what I mean? Not like a, hey, look at how great he was type of biography.
Like I said, I haven't read about him in over 10 years, but I
feel like someone's got to have written stuff about that. Like, I would be interested in reading it because it made me, I don't know, like, because you can't know everything no matter how much you read, but still I was like, I can't believe I've been so close and like known about stuff that he was behind. And like, I've known about all those things and not known he was involved in all of them.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild to me. So I would love to read more because it sounds like a wild dude.
The crazy part was like, Nixon was a fucking drunk, and Like you're
I mean,
you're
I
reading
mean,
through.
insert president's name here was fucking
I know,
drunk.
right?
I
But
mean,
you're
you
like
see
reading through.
Kennedy. I mean, dude
You're
was
reading
cool,
through.
but
So yeah, you're reading through some of these like crucial moments in American history about Kissinger, and it'll be like he received between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. President Nixon made 48 phone calls, and 8 of them were to Henry Kissinger. And then, like you read,
like drunk calling his buddy.
dude, you read a little bit deeper into like ones that are not so sanitized, and it's very obvious that Nixon was fucking like they explicitly say he was drunk, just drunk.
And like, I really hope they were like buddy conversations, not like let's decide how American policy is going to be shaped
Dude,
at 1 a.m. while I'm drunk.
No.
Like,
It was
who should we
definitely
bomb, bro?
it was definitely big decisions were made during these
'Cause,
drunk
like,
phone calls with Kissinger.
If you ever talk to me between midnight and 3 a.m. and I've been drinking, don't take any of it seriously. I might be like, dude, we're opening up our own restaurant. Like, who knows what I might say? So to
Right,
think
dude.
that they were making like world-changing decisions in that state of like,
Yeah,
I'm fucked up. Let's call my buddy, see who we could bomb.
for real.
That's what I'm picturing right now.
Also, Kissinger did not like Nixon at all, even before he worked in his administration. Like I said, he was going around telling people he could never vote for a Republican, especially Nixon, like shit like that. And
Yeah, but Nixon won, so yeah.
so that was it. So he didn't like him, but there's like things you can read where apparently every time he had either Nixon or like some of Nixon's closest advisors on a phone call into Kissinger's office, he would put him on speakerphone, and all of Kissinger's staff would like mock him and like make fucking faces and shit when
Like,
Nixon
can you
was talking.
imagine being in a position where like you think you're that cool, like we're all gonna make fun of the president,
Right.
Like that's how fucking inflated their egos were. Like,
Dude, I swear to
Jesus.
God, too, like all those people that talk about how Kissinger was just like a diplomacy genius or whatever, I'm like, you should honestly read the way he conducted himself. He was a fucking idiot. He wasn't smart. He like literally wasn't smart. He was just a guy that knew 2 things.
He knew a guy. He was a guy who knew a guy.
he always knew. He would like George Santos level would always know if there's an angle being played, and he knew the best way to leverage in on that angle. Like those 2 things are what he was a master of, and you can see it in like the way he does all of his work, because literally he's fucking jerking around, dicking around in the office, making silly faces at people, not giving a shit about anything. But then like when crucial moments come into play, when there's like the possibility of peace negotiation that he wants to halt, like he always knows the right angle to leverage his way in. It was really a savant at fucking shit up.
Jesus. Fucking psycho behavior. I just am still blown away in a way. Like, I just can't believe how many high-ranking Americans are gonna turn out to be like, oh yeah, we was doing a bunch of cocaine and drinking, and at 3 a.m. they made this world-altering decision. Like,
Right.
there seems to be a repeated pattern of these psycho, like, essentially, it seems to me like, I don't know, like sorority bros of like getting in power and staying sorority bros and never growing up and like running fucking the world in a way. Like,
Right.
and they're just douchebag bros. Like,
I could probably bring this point back into what we were talking about earlier too, but like when it comes to somebody just kind of weaseling their way in to our government institutions like that, you should look at like the amount of career positions like that where the person who's in that spot worked as like an aide for a congressman or whatever somewhere in DC, because like 90% of the time that somebody has that position as an aide to one of these congressmen, they're a Nepo baby. Because like they can afford to live in DC, and not have a real job that pay like those guys do not get paid a living
they're
wage.
living in Georgetown, bro. Come on, they're not in DC. They're in Georgetown.
Right. And like, it's all Nepo babies. So like all those people that know somebody, like they end up in these positions like that. That's how it works. So
that's like a very famous vice president. Who's like kind of more of the president than the president.
Yeah.
Was that of like, I'm like fixing telephone wires and I got some DUIs. I'll just go get this intern job in the government. What's your politics? I don't know. Whatever that guy is. Cool. Yeah. You want to be vice president one day?
Sure.
All right, Dick Cheney.
And then Dick Cheney was born.
Why don't you go be like what was he, like CEO of Halliburton or whatever? Like, do that first. After this shit, like, we'll get you back in. You can be VP. Like, what? Like, that's like a lot of people think, oh, you got to be a lawyer, like from Harvard to be a politician. It's like, no. No, you can be a drunk with a bunch of DUIs who is like just a piece of shit, and they'll be like, yeah, one day you'll be vice president.
Yeah, as long as you
can run the room on 9/11.
Yeah, as long as you can afford to be an unpaid intern in DC for 4 years, you're good.
Yeah,
you're good. Yeah. We know you're cut from the same cloth then because you obviously have family ties. You know?
Yeah, and it's just that shit needs to stop. Like, oh man,
yeah.
But that's why I do always feel though I understand and feel closer to the right in America than whatever this so-called liberal side is right now. Like, I agree with a decent amount of the intentions from that side, but like, I don't know, the right, like, they're always fighting for that stuff of like, we want democracy and freedom and this and that. And I'm like, well, that's kind of in a sense what we're looking for too, just very different means of like, I want a real democracy that actually works. That isn't this boys club and like just a bunch of shitty people getting in. And like, if you want a democracy, make it a real one. Like, actually
I have with
be democratic.
People on the right, I feel like I understand their complaints so much better.
They just want it different.
But
they it a different way.
Well, that, and they also
they want to
continuously vote against. They continually vote against their best interests. Like, if they really wanted freedom and better democracy, they wouldn't be voting for Republicans that, increased executive power to such extreme degrees at the federal government. Like, there's so much I can go into on that. But then on the other side of the coin, like, I have such trouble connecting with liberals on like their complaints because they refuse to look at systemic issues for any of it.
Yes.
Like, they'll be like, oh yeah, police is, police killing black people is bad. So the answer is more money to police. And it's like, what's up? And then they'll be like, oh, for more training. And it's like, dude, they're not using that for training. They're using fucking tanks to kill black people. You dumbasses. You got to look at the fucking systemic issues here. Like, it's not something you can just throw money at.
So you get to buy tanks to kill black people.
That's literally what they're...
could've stayed home, just cried and cussed. Mail, your guns go off if it's time to bust. Mail, they tanks have time to rust. They got the armies turning bullets into gold. They got the hookers turning tricks into cold. And every time the police kicks in the dough, an angel gas breaks dips in the O. And even if a D-boy flips in my O, it ain't enough to buy shit anymore. Sleep in the doorway, piss on the floor. Look in the sky, wait for missiles to show. It's finna blow, cause they got the TV, we got the truth. They own the judges and we got the proof. We got hella people, they got helicopters. They got the bombs and we got the
guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. Talk about it, not show. Be about it, spot know. Talk about it, not show. Be about it, spot know.
I just spit the dope lines, I don't snort them. Tell the boss to call police to escort them. You don't write out them lies, you just quote them. Get offline, plug into this modem. No, you can't outvote them, the rules are still golden. On the jewels we holdin' if we guardin' our scrotum. If you press the ear to the turf that is stolen, you can hear the sound of limitations exploding. Please sir, may we have another portion? We're children of the beast that dodge the abortion. Neck plate firm between the floor and the portion. When shut your shit down, don't call it extortion. Caution, we're coming for your head. So call the feds and get files to shred. Every textbook read said bring you the bread, but guess what, we got you instead.
We got the guillotine.